Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. My name is Larry, and I'm 57 years old. I own a garage, not just any garage, but one I built from nothing. Every inch of it reflects my blood, sweat, and determination. My journey started when I was just 17, working my first job in auto repair. I was an apprentice back then, learning the trade under the watchful eye of my uncle. For 8 long years, I saved every dime I could manage to set aside. Finally, with enough money in hand, I opened my own shop. The first few years were grueling. I worked relentless hours, often staying late into the night just to keep the business afloat. Little by little, my persistence paid off. Decades of hard work transformed that small operation into a thriving enterprise. 30 years later, it's something I'm incredibly proud of. But was my career the only journey I'd taken? No, there was love too. Her name was Riley. We crossed paths at an auto show while she was still in college. Our conversation felt effortless, as if we'd known each other for years. Something just clicked. We traded phone numbers, promising to stay in touch. Living in separate cities didn't make it easy, so our early relationship was built on long phone calls. Months later, she visited me in person. That visit solidified our connection. It was undeniable. We had something special. Then life threw Riley a curveball. Her parents passed away unexpectedly, leaving her with no financial support to continue her education. Without a second thought, I reached into my savings and paid for her tuition. She cried, hugging me with everything she had, overwhelmed by the gesture. In that moment, I knew she was the one. 5 years later, she moved in with me. Armed with her law degree, she landed a job at a local firm. Our lives felt full. On weekends, we'd hike together, exploring nature's quiet beauty. One unforgettable Sunday, after a long trek to the top of a hill overlooking the city, Riley did something that left me speechless. She knelt down, pulled out a ring, and asked me to marry her. I'm not often at a loss for words, but that moment caught me off guard. Of course, I said yes. She slipped the ring onto my finger, grinned, and declared, "From now on, you're mine forever." 3 weeks later, we were married in a small, intimate ceremony. Our life together was filled with joy. We had 2 children, Maria, now 19, and James, who's 18. Maria's in college, and James is chasing his passion as the lead guitarist for a local rock band. With the kids growing older and starting their own lives, I found peace. I'd built a successful business, raised 2 amazing children, and supported my wife as she pursued her dreams. I'd never been to college myself, and people sometimes saw me as a rough, unpolished man. But I'd never cared what people thought. I knew who I was. Then everything changed. After 20 years of marriage, I knew Riley's habits better than anyone. I'd seen her at her best and her worst, and I'd learned to recognize when something wasn't right. When she took a new job at a prestigious law firm, I noticed the shift. Late nights at the office became more frequent. Her confidence grew, not in a way that I'd seen before. This was different. It came with an air of entitlement. Then there was her boss, a flashy lawyer known for his big wins in court. From the first moment she mentioned him, I had a bad feeling. I'm a patient man, but patience has its limits. For 3 months, I observed. I listened. I put the pieces together. Her overtime excuses didn't hold up. I'd had enough. One night I confronted her. I'm not a man who raises his voice easily, but that night was different. Riley had never seen me like that before. It took less than 20 minutes before she broke down and admitted everything. Yes, she'd been sleeping with her boss. I'd braced myself for that possibility, but no amount of preparation can make it hurt less. I asked her one thing. Why? Her answer was sharp and heartless. You're the same man you've always been, Larry. You never changed, never grew. You're still wearing the same old clothes and running that garage like it's your entire identity. I want more. I want to be with someone who commands respect at parties, someone people admire. You're not that man. Her words hit harder than any punch. I'd sacrificed so much for her, paid for her education, helped raise our kids, and gave her a loving, stable home. I'd always believed love was about loyalty and partnership, not power and status. So you're throwing away 25 years together because I'm not some arrogant show-off? I asked. That's your reason? Her face hardened. Face reality, Larry. I'm going to be with Robert. You'll have to accept it. If you fight me, I'll destroy you. I'll divorce you, drain you dry, and take everything, even that garage you're so proud of. I stayed quiet for a moment, watching her, not with anger, but with clarity. I'd never seen her more clearly than I did right then. Slowly, I smiled. It wasn't forced or bitter. It was calm, knowing. You're welcome to try, I said softly. She opened her mouth to reply, but I didn't give her the chance. I stood, walked away, and left her there. The next morning, I went to work as usual. I didn't say a word to her on my way out. As soon as I'd left, she called him. Hey, Robert, she said, her voice unsteady. We've got a problem. What happened? He asked, his tone sharp with concern. Larry knows. I told him everything, she admitted. There was a pause. Damn, that's going to complicate things, Robert muttered. But it's not the end. We've talked about this, remember? I know, she sighed. But it's different now. Talking about it was easy. Facing him was something else. We've been together for 25 years. We have 2 kids. And what did you say to him? Robert asked. Exactly what we agreed on, she replied. I told him the truth, that I'm ambitious and he's just a mechanic stuck in the past. I'm looking for someone who matches my ambition. Good, Robert said. Stick with that. We'll make sure he's got no way out. But they'd underestimated me. People have always mistaken patience for weakness. They're about to learn how wrong they are. I'm looking for a partner who's my equal, a man with the strength to lead, not just someone who bends to my every whim. That's the plain truth of it. But I'm not here to vilify him. He's a self-made man, someone who built his business from scratch. It's that very business that kept a roof over our heads, paid for the kids' education, and even supported me when I decided to return to school. Still, when we rehearsed what I'd say, it felt like I had every right to want someone like you. But then he reminded me of everything he'd done, his emotional support, his financial sacrifices, and suddenly, my reasoning didn't sound as convincing. Do you see where I'm coming from? Did you tell him everything? Yes, I told him, Robert. I told him that if he didn't cooperate, the firm would back me to the end in the divorce and leave him with nothing. But here's the thing, he didn't even flinch. None of it seemed to faze him. He just kept saying he couldn't believe I'd throw him aside after all he'd done for me. And I'll be honest, Robert, that hurt. I tried to make him understand that it wasn't about discarding him. It was about wanting more for myself. But I'm not sure he believed me. I don't want to lose him, Robert. More for yourself, huh? Riley, that's a slap in the face, Robert said. You're the one who said you loved my size, he added. You're the one who told me I'd taken you places your husband hadn't in years. Didn't you say you'd never experienced anything like this before? Yes, I did, I admitted. But I also told you that Larry's the only other man I'd ever been with. He's always been gentle with me. Gentle, Robert sneered. And I'm not, huh? I'm the one who's rough, commanding, and you love every second of it. Yes, I whispered. Then get used to it, he declared. Because I'm not going anywhere. Your husband's just going to have to accept that he's not in charge anymore. I am. I'm the alpha now, and that's not changing. Still, he added, I'd hate to think I'd ruined your marriage after 25 years. Here's an idea. I'll draft some paperwork and pay him a visit this afternoon. Just leave me the address to his workshop. What paperwork? I asked. Oh, you know the usual, Robert said with a grin. Restraining orders to keep him away from you, me, and your house. Orders to freeze his business accounts until a settlement's reached. I'll drown him in so much legal red tape he'll be begging for a lifeline. It's the same playbook we use on every poor fool who's too blind to see it coming. That's cruel, I muttered. Cruel? Robert's eyebrow lifted. He'll be lucky to walk away with the clothes on his back. By the time I'm done, he'll be crawling to you for scraps. Welcome to reality, darling. I'm not sure you saw his face this morning, I replied. Later that day, Around 2 p.m., Robert arrived at Larry's garage. "Mr. Garcia, mind if I step in?" Robert's voice was firm and confident. "I know who you are," Larry said, his gaze like cold steel. "Good," Robert replied, walking inside. "Then we can skip the introductions. Let's get straight to it. Riley's already told you she's not changing course with me, but she didn't tell you why you're going to accept it." He set his briefcase on a nearby workbench and snapped it open. "You're looking at the owner of the company your wife works for. I've got over 20 lawyers on my payroll, each one a predator. Half of them are divorce specialists. See these?" He fanned out several documents like playing cards. "This one's a signed divorce petition. This one's an order to freeze your business accounts. Here's an eviction notice giving you 24 hours to leave your home. And these? Restraining orders. You're to stay at least 200 meters away from me, Riley, her house, and my office. Getting the picture, Larry? By the time I'm done, you'll be so tangled in legal knots you won't know which way's up. You'll be too broke to afford a half-rate lawyer. And while you're drowning, I'll still be in your wife's bed." Robert's eyes scanned Larry from head to toe. "Sure, you're bigger than me, stronger too. But muscle doesn't run the world anymore. Brains do. So here's how it's going to work. I'll keep seeing Riley whenever I please, and you'll get to see her when she's in the mood. That's how it's been for the last 4 months. So why change it now? Eventually, I'll get bored, and she'll be yours again." He leaned in close, his grin dripping with smugness. "Face it, if you'd been enough for her, we wouldn't be here. Take the hit, Larry. Use it as fuel to improve yourself." "Here's some free advice," Robert added. "Women want a man who's in control. I didn't win Riley over with charm. I won by taking charge, just like I'm doing with you." Larry's eyes darkened like a gathering storm. His patience had run out. "You done?" he asked, his voice unsettlingly calm. "You're like every fool who's misunderstood what it means to be an alpha. You want me to explain it?" He cracked his knuckles, and for the first time, Robert's smirk faltered. They say actions speak louder than words. With that idea firmly in mind, I took a deliberate step forward and sent a sharp right hook crashing into the lawyer's face. The strike landed with the crisp snap of bone giving way and the jarring clatter of teeth loosening from their sockets. Robert stumbled back, hitting the workshop wall with a thud, his wide-eyed shock mixing with the contorted grimace of pain on one side of his face. The other side was already beginning to swell, puffing up like rising dough. Consider that your first piece of evidence. Before Robert could fully process what was happening, I grabbed him by the collar and hauled him to his feet. But standing wasn't in the plan. My next punch was a brutal uppercut that drove deep into his diaphragm. The air shot out of him in a sharp wheeze, and he folded over, collapsing to the floor and curling into himself like a newborn. Exhibit number 2, for those keeping track. As he lay there, desperate for breath, I raised my steel-toed boot and brought it down hard on his outstretched hand. The snap of bones fracturing was clean and unmistakable. His wrist twisted grotesquely, his fingers bent in unnatural angles like a broken marionette's hand. Another sharp kick to his ribs echoed in the workshop, followed by the hollow crack of bone. That's exhibit 3, and 4 if you're counting. I'm a patient man. Or at least I'd like to think so, but even patience has a limit. "Stop whining," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm trying to teach you something important here." I nudged him with the toe of my boot, making sure he was paying attention. "Congratulations, Robert. You've just made me break a promise I've kept since high school. I'd sworn never to use my strength against anyone unless it was absolutely necessary." I crouched next to him, my tone as steady as if I were explaining a simple math problem. "But look at us now. I was going to let you walk away from all of this. Riley's mess was hers to clean up, not mine. But you? You couldn't help yourself. Had to march in here like you owned the place, acting like you're untouchable. Well, every man's got a breaking point." I pressed the sole of my boot gently but unmistakably against his throat, just enough to remind him that control had slipped from his hands. "Since you're so obsessed with this alpha nonsense, let's have a little lesson on the subject." "You've got it all wrong," I said, watching him squirm. "In a wolf pack, the alpha isn't necessarily the biggest or even the smartest. He's the one who's willing to do what others won't. No hesitation, no mercy. That's what it means to be an alpha. And you? I snorted, shaking my head. You're none of that. In your office, sure, you're king of the cubicles. But out here? Out here, you're just another bug waiting to be crushed. I knelt down so we were eye to eye, letting him see the certainty in mine. You think you're clever, but if you had any sense at all, you'd have brought backup. No witnesses, no support. You're as dumb as they come. Standing up, I leaned back against the wall, letting the silence stretch. All right, Robert, let's review your options. I raised a hand, counting them off on my fingers. Option 1, you call the cops. Maybe they arrest me. Maybe they don't. Maybe I'm charged. Maybe I'm not. Worst case for me, I'm locked up for a few years. And guess what happens in there? I'll learn. Learn to be even more dangerous. Learn to disappear a body if I need to. So when I'm back out, we'll have this same conversation, only you'll be dealing with a much more experienced version of me. I paused, letting him absorb that reality before I continued. Option 2, you count your losses. Chalk this up as a life lesson. I'm sure you've heard of cause and effect, counselor. Sleep with a man's wife, and sometimes that man isn't too happy about it. So take your alpha nonsense, drag yourself out of my shop and don't come back. You've already cost me a night's worth of cleanup. I glanced down at the blood-streaked floor. Look at this mess. Blood's a pain to get out of concrete. Later that evening, Riley's worried voice came through Robert's phone. Robert, where are you? I've been waiting at the office. You're hours late. Robert's voice was hoarse and strained. Hospital, he muttered. 3 hours in the ER before they finally admitted me. What happened? She gasped. Did you crash your car? No, he replied with a bitter groan. Your husband happened. I thought I could handle him. Idiot move. He broke my nose, my hand, 3 ribs, and maybe my cheekbone too. That's not possible, Riley stammered. Larry's never hurt anyone in his life. Believe it, Robert muttered. I've got the X-rays to prove it. This isn't real, she said, barely above a whisper. It's real, Robert replied, his voice hollow. And before you ask, no, I'm not calling the cops. He made it clear this was just a down payment on what's coming if I try. He's bluffing, Riley said, her voice rising in pitch. No, he's not, Robert sighed. The police came by already. I told them I got hit by a car. I'm not taking that chance. The next day, Riley walked into Robert's hospital room, her face pale with panic. Robert, I'm ruined. Drove around for hours, afraid to go home. When I finally did, the locks were changed. Bank accounts emptied, credit cards frozen. I've got nothing. You have to help me. Her voice cracked. Robert's gaze was cold. No. No to what? She asked, her voice breaking. No to everything, he said, his eyes locked on hers. If I use company resources to help you, Larry's coming for me again. I'm not that stupid. His gaze hardened. You're fired, Riley. 4 weeks severance. Leave by today. He glanced at her, unmoved. If you see him, tell him I'm out. Larry has taken everything from me. No money, no job. And without you on my side, I'm left with nothing but the ground beneath me. I'm sorry, Riley. You didn't see the look in your husband's eyes when he turned on me. I'm doing what I must to survive. Pathetic. That's all you've ever been. Just yesterday you were parading around like some alpha male puffed up with pride. But look at you now, shaking like a leaf, terrified that my husband, a man with 10 times your strength and resolve, might be hiding in the shadows. How did I ever let myself believe you were an upgrade? It's laughable that you thought I'd take you seriously, knowing full well you're a liar and a coward. Riley Garcia sat motionless in her car, fingers curling tightly around her phone. Parked on the side of the road, she stared at the blank screen. Her credit cards had been declined, her cash was gone, and she'd soon be out of gas too. Oddly, I hadn't cut off her phone. Maybe it was an oversight, or maybe I'd left it on for one final twist of the knife. She'd been driving toward the city, hoping to find refuge with her children. They'd always answered her texts within minutes. But today? Silence. She'd been trying to reach them since 10 a.m., and by now, she'd checked for messages so many times that it felt like a ritual. Still nothing. With a sigh of resignation, She reached for her purse, as empty as everything else in her life, and stepped out of the car. Smoothing the wrinkles from her skirt, she glanced up and down the quiet road. Then she raised her thumb, hoping for mercy from a passing stranger. That's when I pulled up in my old van, the paint chipped and the engine growling like a caged beast. I'd seen her the moment she'd stepped out of her car, a lone woman stranded on the roadside. I've never claimed to be an alpha. That's for men desperate to prove something. Real predators don't need to prove a thing. They hunt alone. I brought the van to a stop, and when she saw me, her eyes went wide with panic. Her body tensed, ready to flee, but fear rooted her in place. She'd seen it too late, the truth of what's in my eyes. I got out slowly, every step deliberate. "Get in," I said, my voice calm, measured. "We need to talk." She hesitated but did as she was told. No words, no resistance. She slid into the passenger seat and I followed, closing the door with a weighty finality. I didn't waste time. "Here's how it's going to go," I said, my eyes locked on hers. "You're going to file for divorce. No alimony, no claim to my property. What's mine stays mine. What's yours stays yours." I glanced at her sideways, watching her reaction. Her face was stone, but her eyes darted, searching for an exit. "Every piece of jewelry I've ever bought you, you'll return it. Write whatever reason you want for the divorce. Infidelity, irreconcilable differences. I don't care. Just get it done. Once it's final, you're gone from this town. No visits, no returns. You're done here." Her breath hitched, but she stayed silent. Her eyes were fixed on the dashboard like it held the answers to all her problems. I'd seen that look before, hope fighting against certainty. "You'll still get to see the kids," I added, knowing this part would cut deepest. "But only if they want to see you, and only when I'm not around." I let the weight of that statement linger before dealing the final blow. "Your things will be packed and ready for you at the house. Be there by 10 a.m. tomorrow to collect them. If you're even a minute past 11 a.m., I'll burn it all. Am I clear?" Her lips pressed into a tight line. Slowly she nodded, her gaze never leaving the dashboard. "When do I get the papers?" I asked. "A week," she muttered, her voice so faint it barely existed. 5 days, I replied. "I want them on my desk in 5 days. Understand?" Another nod. This time her eyes flickered toward me for just a moment, like she'd seen something she'd rather forget. I'd seen that look too, the look of someone who's realized too late what's been hunting them. Satisfied, I opened the door and gestured for her to get out. She did, and I drove away without so much as a glance in the rear view. By 10:30 a.m. the next morning, she'd already collected her things. 5 days later, the divorce papers were on my desk, right on time. Irreconcilable differences. That's what she'd written. I laughed when I saw it. Months passed, and freedom came with a signature and a stamp of approval from the court. It was done. Official. I'd like to say I felt relief, maybe even joy, but there was only stillness inside me. No anger, no peace, just the quiet. I'd wanted to believe Riley could be loyal, that she'd understand what it means to stand by someone through fire and flood. She never did. To her, I'd always be the man with worn-out clothes and unpolished shoes. She'd never grasped that you don't challenge a man like me, not a man who's 6'5" and refuses to bow. You don't threaten a man like that unless you're ready for what's coming. If she'd chosen to talk to me instead of trying to play the power game, maybe it could have ended differently. But once the line's been crossed, there's no walking it back. So now, I'll live on my terms, alone, if that's what it takes. Maybe I'll die alone too. That's the way it is for apex predators. No pack, no tribe, just one hunter walking the edge of the world. And that's fine by me. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.